everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Jared. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe. I did a video recently about a little accident that we got in as we were coming home from Utah. We were in Kansas and just 25 minutes from home, and we hit a raccoon with our rental car. And it was a big enough raccoon, and we hit it hard enough to where it damaged the radiator and coolant was leaking out and the car overheated. And as I was thinking about this experience, it actually made me think about this war that Israel is in right now. It made me think about that because the raccoon, initially it was in our lane. It saw our car and then it went to the left into the other lane, and it seemed like it was going to continue going and just get off the road. But I don't know what it was thinking, but it decided to cut back and get back into our lane, and I didn't have time to react, and then we hit it. And that makes me think about Israel, because Israel, ever since this war started, it's had a lot of success. It seems like it's pretty much taken care of Gaza. At least the main, like the bulk of fighting there seems to be over. It's now pivoted toward the north with Hezbollah and Lebanon. And, you know, Israel's been successful with all these different strikes. They've taken out a lot of Hezbollah's leadership. There was the pager attack, and Israel just seems to be relentless. It's just, you know, strike after strike after strike. And it seems like they've been like really successful so far. So much so that it seems like they're just gonna like take out all their enemies, is what it feels like. So just like the raccoon, the way that it really looked like it was just gonna get off the road and everything was gonna be okay. But then things changed. And I wonder if we're reaching that point with this war in Israel. I have nothing to back this up, but I just wonder if there's going to be one pivotal day where suddenly something happens that nobody expected, and then Israel goes on the defense. And instead of being on the offense, they're now potentially being invaded. At some point, we know that the enemies of Israel are going to attack. They're going to invade. The war, or the battle of Armageddon, it seems like it's supposed to take place centered on that area in the north of Israel, and so that would most likely mean an invasion. And that's kind of like what I'm waiting for. As you know, I'm very flexible when it comes to prophecy and the interpretation of prophecy. I definitely come to my own conclusions and kind of form a picture in my head, but I'd rather just wait and see what actually happens. But if that's the case, and I think that is what'll happen, it has to happen at some point. You know, Israel's doing really good right now, and if this is the final war, then at some point there has to be some kind of pivot. The raccoon has to come back into this lane, and then disaster, you know, until Christ comes and he saves them. And so, you know, we're all watching this, and you have all the different experts that weigh in, and you have people that are familiar with the military strength of all these different groups and countries. But in reality, no one ever knows what's going to happen. You know, people have really good educated guesses, but nobody really knows. There's been so many times in world history that you've had surprise attacks, and that's actually how this war started. Nobody was predicting that there was going to be this kind of attack from Hamas on October 7th. Maybe some people knew, I don't know, but it really seems like it was just a very successful surprise attack. I've said this before, and I don't mean to be a broken record, but I think it was earlier that year in 2023, there was a pretty significant rocket attack from the Gaza Strip from Hamas, and tensions were flaring. And that's because I think it was that same year there was kind of a flare-up at the Temple Mount, at Al-Aqsa Mosque, and things were looking really bad. And on top of that, Israel was going through like a domestic problem where they were trying to kind of like restructure the government and do what they're calling a judicial overhaul. They essentially have what resembles a constitutional government, but they don't actually have a constitution, and so they're still kind of like working out the way that government should be. And it was at the very beginning of the year in January that there were all these protests because they didn't want anything to be changed with the judicial branch. So it seemed like at that time that Israel was ripening for like an attack. Their enemies were viewing them as weak, and then there were tensions on the Temple Mount, and then after that, that's when you had that first big rocket attack from Hamas. And but I would listen to the experts, and they would say things like, well, Hamas, they don't want a war. They're struggling to maintain power. They're more concerned about their political power in the Gaza Strip, and it's not in their interest to go to war with Israel. Well, just a few months later, that is what actually happened. And I don't know of anybody that predicted that. And so I feel like the same could be true of potentially Hezbollah, Iran, as far as like their ambitions to destroy Israel and possibly even invade it. Now, I'm not an expert when it comes to military manpower. I was talking to Rachel about this just a little while ago, and she was talking about the fact that, you know, Israel has like the strongest military in that area. I do wonder, however, what things would be like if it boiled down to manpower, because you can have sophisticated weapons, you can have both conventional and non-conventional weapons, but if the other side has more people, if they have more soldiers, then it's kind of like it's like with World War II. I've heard it explained this way. Germany was really advanced in their weaponry, relatively speaking, relative to the other nations of the world. And it's like you're a boxer. You're like a professional boxer. You're the best. You've like won all these championships. You really know your sport, and you've had lots of victories, and you know you're recognized as being like the best boxer. But it doesn't really matter how good you are at boxing if you have like 100 other people in the boxing ring and they're all fighting against you. You're probably not going to win that match. And so if things go down that road, if the enemies of Israel decide to unite and decide that it is time to go against them, even though Israel may have nuclear weapons, I don't know that they're going to be able to hold them back if they have the manpower. So this is all like, it's not looking like that at this point. Although I will say, according to the news that I've watched, there were plots by Hezbollah to do like an October 7th style attack into Israel. I also saw other ones talking about taking the Golan Heights, because that's a disputed area. So I wouldn't take those things off the table. It doesn't matter if they seem unlikely. They may be unlikely, but that doesn't mean that they can't happen. So, but, you know, just this whole raccoon thing, it's just like, for me, it just kind of like hit home. I was just like, because like you've seen this type of thing in movies and in other places, maybe documentaries, where one party just like seems like they're just doing really good, things are going one way, and then everything gets turned around, and then the tables are turned. So I just wonder if that could happen soon. We've seen a lot of signs of the times, or at least what I feel are signs of the times, that are specific to Israel and specific to the Jews. I feel like the two eclipses this year, the two solar eclipses, were a couple of those, because they both took place a day before a significant month on the Hebrew calendar. The first one was April 8th, and it happened to be the day before the month of Judah, which is Nisan. I have that graphic, I don't have it right now, but the Jews, essentially, they associate each tribe of Israel with a month of the year. And so Nisan, the month of Passover, is associated with Judah. And there was the eclipse on April 8th that happened the day before the month of Nisan. And then this eclipse that just happened, I think it was on October 2nd. It was the day before Tishri. Tishri is the month that they associate with Ephraim. It's on the opposite side of the year. It's 6 months later. And it's also the new year. And I don't know how statistically unlikely that is, but I feel like it's very significant, and I feel like it has to do with the Jews and potentially Israel. There's so much more that I can say, but I have an entire channel's worth of content talking about these things. So the point is, the world seems to be getting crazier and crazier. Israel seems to be a key element in that because of what's prophesied to happen in regards to the final war and the different battles of that war, Armageddon and the siege of Jerusalem. And I tend to think that this is that war. I think that it's headed down that path. It's an unprecedented war for Israel. They have had 3 other existential wars, but they were more like conventional wars, meaning like a military against another military, rather than this, where it's a military versus these terrorist groups, as well as a conventional military, as well as these like militia groups, and it's different. It's not the same as previous wars. So it makes me take notice. We'll have to wait and see what actually happens. But that's all I have for this one. So if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it, leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also make sure to share it, and I'll talk to you guys later.